Thanks for coming. My name is Bryce Peterson, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do 3D modeling in a software called Rhinoceros. So a bit about my background. I'm a junior mechanical engineer here in Maryland, and I have been doing 3D modeling specifically in the software for about 3 years now. So I have a fair amount of experience, and I also am part of the startup shell. So I'm part of the Epsilon batch, I believe, and came in my freshman year and for a robotics idea that I was working on. So I currently do robotics research in the micro robotics lab. So if you guys are interested in robotic stuff, you could talk to me as well. So I'm going to show you some of the previous work that I've done in Rhino, and to give you sort of an idea and some examples of the stuff you can do. So one of the things I got into at first was phone cases. So it's a good industrial design application, and was able to build up a good amount of skills making these and actually 3D printing them. Other projects I've done are in robotics. So this was actually a functional robotic arm that I was able to design from scratch, and it has integrated servos, and the whole thing is able to move around. And you can see some of the geometries here are pretty unique, so stuff you can do with Rhino. Another thing was a project for the Quest program. Designed a heel that fit in with an existing shoe and could convert from a heel to a flat. This is a Jeep that I designed for an art class as well. So did all of the surface modeling for this, and pretty much from scratch as well, just based off of 2D pictures. This is the Startup Shells logo. So I actually did a 3D extrapolation of it, which I ended up 3D printing. So this is it. You guys check it out. But if you guys can figure out how you might model something like that in a program like Inventor or SolidWorks, please let me know. But this is the sort of thing that you can actually accomplish with Rhino with a fair amount of ease. And that's because Rhino is really based off of surfaces. It's not based off of solids. Another project I had was to create a sculpture of a face. So these are lips and a nose that I was able to model in Rhino based off of pictures. And I used a software called Make123D to turn it into a full wooden sculpture that I CNC'd from a sheet of plywood. And that was something that was also like a unique blending of different softwares. So if you guys are interested in this sort of thing, you can also ask me about that later. This is my OSV. How many of you guys are engineers? Show of hands. Okay, so you guys know the ENES 100 project, and took a bit of pride in making mine look extra flashy, though it was not very functional in the end, but it did look good. So I'll tell you a bit about Rhino. So Rhino is a NURBS software. NURBS is non-uniform rational basis spline. I think what it really is actually about is objects based off of curves and surfaces that are irregular. So it's all about surface modeling. So you can build up your objects from the most simple geometries, which are curves and surfaces, and then solids, but not primitives. So a lot of CAD programs like Inventor or SolidWorks, you're essentially creating primitives, or like bringing in objects or extruding curves into very simple objects. So this essentially makes Rhino pretty well suited for applications like industrial design, architecture, freeform modeling, and maybe engineering. I use it for engineering because I'm pretty familiar with it for that application, but it's not an engineering CAD software. So features that you will not see are simulation. There's no stress testing or things like that. There's no parameterization. So once you make an object, that's the object. You can't go back and simply edit the dimensions of it and it'll change. You'll have to actually do more work to change the object. There's no model tree similarly, so you can't go back and change one thing and then the successive things that you've done change, because there's no history to it. Your model has unlimited Control Z, but you can't go back and edit one thing and have the succession of events afterwards. And then finally, there's no constraints. So it's tough to make full actual models of multiple parts that are coordinated and test out and animate them. So with that being said, I'm going to have a disclaimer. So Rhino has a very high barrier to entry, but once we pass it, we're going to see that it can be very quick and easy to use and really expedite your workflow. I might be exaggerating, but I think it will be a bit tough. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them anytime throughout the talk. And Sam is also a bit versed in Rhino, so he can also help answer questions for you guys. So let's get started. If you guys have the software already, you should open it up. If you don't have it, go to the Facebook page, and you can find links for a free trial download. So when you open the software up, it'll prompt you, essentially, do you want to, what scale or unit system you want to use? You can pick any one. I would recommend inches. Actually, I opened up the wrong version right now, but I already have another open. So, all right. So first thing we see when we get in here is the workspace. Your guys' workspace might look a little bit different than mine, but I tried to reset everything to the most standard workspace. So if you click on these little tabs here, these can take you between the different views. So there's top, front, right, and then there's the perspective view. And essentially, these are the planes on which you will be drawing and working. You also have essentially your mouse. So to get around, you're using the right mouse button to turn and hold Shift while pressing right mouse button to pan around. You can use the scroll to zoom. And that's pretty much all you need to know for navigating the actual workspace. So I show hands who has the software ready right now. You ready? Ready? You guys are ready? Who does not? Let's see. All right. You guys, we'll catch you up too. All right. So the next thing to know is up here are essentially menus, and these contain a lot of different commands. So say I want to make a box, I'd go to solid, box, and this is an option for how to create it. So I'm going to do corner to corner height. Okay, and you can see you can navigate around this. You guys will actually at first have a view that looks like this. So there are different views for objects as well. And this is a wireframe view, so you can see things as just their edges. But for the most part, we're going to work in the shaded view. So another thing to know is that there are layers. So you can take this object, and it will display essentially information about it. So one thing that you can change is the layer. So I'm going to put this on the red layer. And say I draw another box. This one was drawn on the default layer because that's my current layer. If I had changed my current layer to red, the layer 1, then it would have drawn in red. You can also hide layers with these little light bulbs. And pretty much layers are a way to organize all of your objects, because one thing that I really like about Rhino is you have a lot of control over the actual space. So it sort of, to me, it feels like I'm actually present in this land of shapes, and I can make things, and then, so one way to version things, instead of just having a history to them, you can simply say, I'm going to make a copy of this. So you guys do not see this little thing right here. This is called the Gumball. So I want you guys to type in Gumball, and it'll say down here or up here in the command bar, you can actually click these or type O and turn it on. So Rhino is very much based on commands. So there are different ways to like start a command. You can go up here and find the command. You can use these toolbars to find an icon that represents the command. But I don't have any of these toolbars memorized, so I'm just going to get rid of this. I don't use these. But you guys all have a sheet, which is essentially a list of commands. If you don't have one, we can get you one. And throughout the presentation, you can use that as a reference because all of those are pretty useful. And from what this is essentially a list of all the commands I use. And to make pretty much any object, you can build up from those. So yeah, you can select from the menus, or you can type in commands. And I personally like to type in commands. You'll see that there are aliases. I didn't get a chance to actually upload the file for the aliases, but I can make that available after the presentation. Yeah. Okay, so you're currently in a wireframe view, so you want to right-click on that button, perspective, and click on shaded. Yeah. All right, so let's get started on our first object. So this is going to be a simple house. I think a simple house is kind of like the hello world of CAD. So let's get going with that. So you guys all have a box. Or if you don't, you can simply type in box and draw one. When you're doing a command, pay attention to the command bar because it'll give you a guide for the steps to follow in the creation of that object. All right. So once we have our box, the first thing we should make for this house is a chimney. So to make a chimney, and for now, I want to place this chimney in the direct center of my box. So I'm going to make a line. So you can type in line, or you can go to curve line. And I'm going to draw this line from this corner to this corner. You see right now that I have this little label saying end int. This is an object snap. Object snaps essentially let you use existing geometries as references for the lines that you are drawing. So if you do not have those on, you can see down here there's a little button called OSnap. Can you guys see this or something similar to this at any point? All right, so go to panels, and I believe it should be, actually, can you see this button down here? No? Okay. Damn. When you guys press line, do you get these little labels right now or no? Yeah. No, okay. And we don't have the object snaps. All right. Try and find these. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, down here. Okay, so might not be super visible, but you guys should have this bar down here, and there should be this little button, OSnap. Can you guys find it? Or if you have a Mac, let me see. Yeah. So on the Mac, it should be on the left side of the screen, and you'll see like a list of different perspectives. Let's check on this. So yeah, these are your object snaps. They're on the left side of the screen. It's a list that essentially contains these different words here. So go ahead and click and enable a bunch of those. You can enable the ones that I have right now. And essentially, so say I take off end. So this is an intersection of two lines. If I take an int, all I get is near this edge. I'm not getting an object snap for this corner, really. So you can toggle which ones you want, and they can be very helpful at times and annoying at others. If you have a lot going on in your model, there might be too many things that your cursor is snapping to, so you can disable some. All right, does anybody not have the object snaps at this point? All right, cool. So let's draw a line from this corner to this corner, and we're going to make a cylinder. So solid, cylinder, and on the bottom it says base of cylinder, so it really means the center. And I'm going to draw a circle, and then draw the height of this cylinder. Okay. After that, so this is our chimney. We might want to manipulate some, but we're going to do that a bit later. So the next thing we're going to do is draw a front door. So you can actually take this C-plane and move it to different parts of your object. So that's useful because it's hard to draw on a surface unless you have the C-plane there. So I'm going to go to View and Set C-plane to Object. And then you can click any face of this object, and it will select, and it'll move the C-plane there. So that's now allowing you to easily draw on that face. From there, I'm going to draw a door. So there's two ways to do this. I could say polyline, and I want to draw 4 curves and connect them. And now I have this rectangle here. I could also do a more basic command, which is line, and draw 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines. Yeah.
Is there any way to make sure that your lines are 90 degrees to the line?
So one setting that I have turned on right here is Ortho. This is just orthogonal. So without it, if I draw a line, it's going to be all over the place. You still get a guide sometimes, but Ortho makes things a bit easier. It's essentially trying to lock you into an orthogonal direction when you draw a line. If you don't want to have orthogonality, you can hold Shift while you're moving this around if you have the orthogonal setting on. It's down here at the bottom. Oh yeah, you don't have that. Okay. Sam, do you see it?
Look in your upper left.
Okay. So I just drew 4 separate lines, and I'm going to try and select all of them. So one way I can do that is drag window and it'll select them, or I can select them individually. So if you hold Shift while you're selecting objects, you can select multiples. And one thing that'll happen is if you're selecting something that might be on top of another thing, so this line, it'll say, do I want to select this curve or this extrusion here? If you right-click while you're, so if you click this and then right-click, it'll select the first on the list. So I'm going to select all these, and we're going to type join. So these 4 separate lines have now become one curve. And you can actually see that this is a closed curve too. So you get the information that there are no openings, and essentially the ends of this curve meet up. Does anybody have any questions so far? We're all on the same page? All right. So now that I have this curve, I'm going to go to solid and extrude planar curve straight. And you can see that now I'm essentially extruding this curve out. So say I wanted to extrude it 10 inches. You can see down at the bottom here my current extrusion. So when I move this, it is adjusting this. But if I don't want to try and like line up perfectly, I can just type in 10. And press enter, and it'll automatically extrude it 10 inches. So what just happened there is that it extruded it into the box. There's a positive and a negative on the C-plane, and you can usually figure out which way it's positive or negative by starting your extrusion and then looking down at the bottom here to see if this is negative, this side is positive. So I'm going to extrude this 3 inches. And so now I have these two nestled objects. There's a view for looking into objects. It's called ghosted. So another way you can change your view is just by right-clicking on the View tab or the Perspective tab here, and ghosted is a view. So you can see there's transparency to these objects now. It allows you to see in and out of them. So we're going to run the command boolean difference.
And this can also
be found under solid difference.
Boolean difference is essentially a fancy word to say subtract.
So we're following the command, we're going to subtract from our house. Press enter, subtract width or door. You can also see that down here there's this toggle delete input. So the object that you're using as the subtractor, you can either have it automatically be deleted or not. I prefer to have it not be deleted, and if I want to delete it, I'll just do that separately. So I'm going to leave that off and press enter. So here's my door, and we'll delete that, and you can see that now we have an opening. And that geometry has essentially been removed from our solid. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is try and fillet our house. So we want to round out the edges a bit. So what we're going to do is go to solid, fillet edge, and fillet the edge. So this is asking us which edges do we want to fillet. So I'm going to select these here, and this is saying a bunch of options down here, but I think the important one is link handles. So if I say link handles, when I edit this one, all the other ones will be adjusted accordingly. And that gives me a nice rounded appearance to the edges of my house. So the next thing that I want to do is cut a roof. So what I'm going to do, I have my C-plane already on the surface that I'm looking to cut, and I'm going to take a line and I'm going to draw it from here to here. And I'm going to take another line and also draw it from here to here. These lines just exist as geometries. They're not really part of the model, but I'm going to use them to create other geometries which I can use to sculpt the model. So now that I have both of these selected, I'm going to say Extrude Curve, and I'm going to extrude them all the way through the house. So now we have these two, what we'll call just planes, and we're going to use these planes to cut some roof out of our house. So we're going to do the command split. So I want to split this house with these planes. And I'm going to press enter. So I'll just run that again, so it says which objects do I want to split? I'm using these as the cutting objects. And then I'm going to delete this and this. Or maybe I want to save this geometry. Maybe I think it could be useful later. So I'm just going to drag it over here. And that exists somewhere else in the model now. I like to maintain a layer that I call trash. And I can take these and put them on my trash layer and just have this layer permanently be off. So, for now they're not in my way, but in the future I might say, I wish I still had that geometry I used earlier. So I just turned that layer on, and there they are. We're going to go ahead and take these, and we're going to run split again. So this time, we're going to split these surfaces. We're going to split these surfaces with the house. I call this the double split method. So split these with the house. And now we have this house, but these are actually, these that we just cut are actually separate from the house. If you click one and type hide, you can still see that this is essentially a collection of surfaces. And you can see that there's no actual thickness to the walls. There is essentially, this is just a collection of surfaces right now. So if I press show, that'll show that object again. And to bring all these surfaces together, I'm going to select them all and type join. And you can see that now this is a closed poly surface. For the purposes of 3D printing, you want to have closed poly surfaces. That's essentially saying you have a watertight model. So you could fill this model with water, and it couldn't get out from any opening. And then the last thing that I'd like to do is take our chimney, and I'd like to scale it down a bit. So do you guys have the Gumball on, which is this small thing here? So if you don't, type Gumball and turn it on. And so we can use these little squares here to scale things. If you want to have a uniform scale, hold shift while you're using the squares. And that will help you reshape your object however you want it to. These are quick sort of things. If you want a more precise scaling, you can use things in the transform menu. But for now, I'm just going to use the gumballs. And I'm going to drag it around and try and place it where I want it to. You can also rotate it using these lines here. And finally, I'm going to select this, make sure it's fully overlapping with the house. And I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to type Boolean union, which is essentially taking two objects and turning them into one. Boolean union can also be found under solid union. And maybe just for show, let's add an absurd sphere to the top of our chimney. And you can see that another object snap that exists is the center of a shape. So I'm going to have center, and then I'm going to drag out this sphere, and I'm going to union those again. All right, so is anybody lost? Is anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got lost when we started extruding the door.
Okay. So what was the issue?
When I tried doing, what was it, Boolean different,
Mm-hmm.
it just, I would select the door object,
Uh-huh.
and then nothing would happen. So I selected the building, and it deleted everything.
You guys, feel free to play around while I'm helping people. Okay, so the first thing it's saying is select which ones to subtract from.
So
Yeah.
I'd select this
Yeah.
first, and then that.
So wait, no, because the second part of the command is essentially, so you want to do it again? If you press enter, it should do the same command over. So you want to select from that, press enter, and then the next part is subtracting with that.
So now enter.
Yeah, and
Now
now,
I got my little door.
yeah.
All right, cool.
Cool. All right.
And then you did.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm not even further. Look, I have my. Well, now it's on. So now my worth's on. It's just not letting me do it on the wall.
Okay. So one thing you could do is So right now your C-plane is under your house.
Yeah. You can also do from perspective.
Yeah, you could do front perspective, but the thing about front perspective is it's essentially an axis or like a plane, and you don't know where that plane is. So when you start drawing, it might not be on that surface.
Okay.
So what I would recommend doing is going to view.
To view.
Yeah, and going to set C-plane and saying to object. And it's going to say, where do I want to set this to? So you select the surface that you want to set it to, and it's essentially on that surface now, and you'll be able to easily draw on that surface.
Cool.
One thing about the ghosted view that you're in is that it wants to select behind objects for some reason. So shade is usually the best one to use. You're still in ghosted. You want to go to view and then shaded.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Okay. Cool. What's up, Tammy? About it. You can catch up on the next tutorial if you want.
Yeah.
Like, because the next object won't be totally reliant on this one. We'll do another object. So yeah, but I'll give you guys a bit of time to catch up. Hey.
I've been having a lot of trouble with drawing the lines.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of times they're like just kind of in random directions.
Okay, so what it wants to do is draw the lines on this surface on the bottom here, and you can move this surface around here. This is called the C-plane. So go to View, Set C-plane, and then to Object, and you can click the face of the object that you want to draw on. And so now it's set there, and it'll be easier to draw there.
What's the C-plane commands in Windows?
It's View, Set C-plane.
All right, at the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah. All right, cool. Do you need help with like more of the commands, or do you think you got them?
What would I do for the...
So you wanna use the Extrude Curve command. Yeah, curve, and then select those curves. So, have you done the door so far?
No.
Okay, so let's do the door first. So select those. And the bottom one too. Or actually, so you want to close that up. So we got to even backtrack a bit more. So draw a line closing up that square. And then select all four of the lines. And you can do that by like dragging a window too, like that. And just type join. Okay. And now you can extrude that. And one thing that you want to click is solid. So that makes it an actual solid geometry. And you can then extrude that into there. And while you're doing this command, you can rotate the mouse around too to give you a better view. And then, so that should be, you want to check. That should go in there. So let's check with the ghosted view. So you can right click on that little perspective thing and go to ghosted. So it looks like you do have an actual solid in there. But let me just check real quick. So this, so you can get information. See, right now you have two layer things, but it'd be nice to have this. This is a closed extrusion. Okay. So now you can say Boolean difference, subtract from this with this. Okay. And then so try and use two lines to cut a roof now. How you doing?
Hi. I'm trying to dimension
was waiting. I didn't realize we had people looking to get questions answered. So I might be able to answer you guys' questions individually, but yeah, sorry about that. This isn't super well suited to a virtual tutorial. All right, so let's take this house that we built, and we're going to put it on layer 2, and we're going to hide it. And then I'm going to take all these other curves and delete them. You guys with me right now? Anybody? All right, cool. So I'm going to go, and we're going to change views. So let's go to the front view. And now we're looking at the workspace from the front. And what we're going to do now is make a cup. And this is to demonstrate sort of the ability to use curves to sweep out objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line. And it's going to be vertical. And this is essentially the axis about which we're going to draw our cup. And then we're going to go to curve and freeform curve, and we're going to use control points. This is the simplest way to draw a nice curvy curve. And I'm going to start on the left side of our axis, and I'm going to cross over and start drawing the shape of a mug in profile. So imagine you were going to cut a mug in half. You would essentially be looking at the profile of the mug like this. So this might be sort of far-fetched, but imagine that you took a mug and you cut it in half, and then you only looked at half of that half. So you're kind of looking at a quarter of a mug. So yeah, just draw a shape that is kind of similar to this, and it'll become more clear. What you guys should do next, and last time a lot of people got behind, so if you're not with me, just let me know. All right, yeah.
So which command do you select to draw the curve?
All right, so that was curve, freeform, and control points. And you can pretty much just drag the curve around using that command. Anybody else not with me? Even if you guys are working on the house still, you can come back to that later. I would suggest you watch this so that you can learn some more skills for now. All right, so just let me know if anybody is not ready.
Is there a way for you to, if you close the curve by accident, for you to unclose the curve like you open it?
So did you close the curve on this side or this side?
One more time, sorry.
Did you close the curve on this side of the axis or this side of the axis? This is. All right, that doesn't even matter right now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say trim. And trim is essentially saying let's use this curve as a way to cut other curves. So select the axis, press enter, and then select the left side of the mug profile. And you can see it sort of cuts them back to the line. Okay? From there, I'm going to select the profile that I have, and I'm going to type in Revolve. And it wants me to draw an axis of revolution, so that's the axis we already have. So I'm going to go from this end to this end. It's going to say my start angle is 0 degrees, my end angle is 360 degrees, and it's going to draw an object. So I'm going to go back to perspective, and we can come in and look at this. And what has essentially happened is that there is now an object which has been swept by this curve. I'm going to set my C-plane to top again just to give myself a better view. And we have this nice object here. So you can do things like this this is essentially a sweep in 360 degrees. So now we're going to do another thing. We're going to add a handle. So let's go back to the front view. And I want you guys to draw another curve. This one is going to be another curve from control points. And I want you to start inside of the mug, go outside, draw the nice shape of a handle, and then finish back inside of this profile here. And then press enter. Is anybody trouble with that?
Mine's like sticking to each of the edges. Like I can't select.
Okay. If it's selecting the edges, hold Alt, or for Mac users, I believe it's hold Command to disable the object snaps temporarily while you draw. You could also go to the object snap panel and just disable all of them for now. There's like a little disable button. All right, so now if you guys have figured out this curve, and I know you might not have, but I'll come around in a bit. I'm going to switch my view to the right. So now I'm looking at this mug in a different direction. So this curve is sort of invisible. Before I actually go to the right, I'm going to go back to front, and I'm going to say circle. So we're drawing a circle. And this is sort of a multi-step process. So you're starting your circle in this view because you want to start it on the end of the curve, on the end of the supposed handle. I'm going to now switch to right so that the actual orientation of this curve is perpendicular to the handle. And I'm going to draw it out and then make that circle. I go back to perspective. What this looks like is essentially a circle that is aligned with the end of my handle. And then finally, I'm going to run a command called surface sweep one rail. So the rail is essentially what I want to follow, and the cross-section curve is the circle that is true. And you press enter. Okay. And here we are, a nice handle. And I'll show my mug again. You can see that it intersects nicely with the mug. Finally, I want to combine these two. And the easiest way to do this is if both of these are actual closed surfaces or closed poly surfaces. So I'm going to click the handle, and I'm going to say cap. And it's going to close the ends of it. And then I'm going to click both of the mug and the handle, and I'm going to go solid union. And here we go. We've got a mug with a handle. So yeah, that's that. And I'll just take the liberty to show you some of the other features of Rhino right now before I make rounds again. So one thing that's unique to Rhino is the ability to manipulate surfaces very easily using what's called control points. So right now I'm going to draw a surface that's just a plane. And this plane is defined by things called control points. So if I press F10, it runs a command called points on. And you can see these small points that are defining the edges of this surface. And I can actually drag these points around to manipulate this surface in 3 dimensions. So I can take this surface and then drag it like that. I can drag this one down, this one out. And I'm getting a pretty weird object. This isn't something that you could easily do in other CAD programs. And this is where the real unique abilities of Rhino come into play. But I only have 4 control points for this surface right now, and I'd like to get more ability to manipulate it. So I'm going to type in rebuild. And a little box pops up, and it says how many points do I want to rebuild this surface with. So let's say 6 in each direction. That's like X and Y essentially. And press OK. So now if I type points on again, you can see that there are a lot more actual control points for this surface. And I can, again, click these and drag them to manipulate this object. And we start getting a very unique surface that's defined by these control points. So this is probably the most fun thing to play around with for now. You can also, say, take a sphere. And a sphere is defined by 2 control points when you initially make it. Oh, actually, no. So what it'll do, so there's 2 actual control points on this sphere. It's one here, I guess one here, and also one here. But it's really surrounded by this box, and I can manipulate multiple points on this box at once to do funky stuff to this sphere. So you guys might have seen the nose that I showed you earlier and the lips. Those were essentially made doing operations like this. They were a single sphere that started off, and I just started manipulating them to make the object that I desired. And you know, you can select control points and contract them as well. And we're ending up with something like, you know, totally random, but it really allows you to play around as much as you want. The only problem is that points on is like generally very easy to use for a surface, which this sphere began as. It was a closed surface, but say I have something like this mug. I can't turn points on for it. You can see here, cannot turn points on for poly surfaces. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a command called, and I'm going to click bounding box and then press enter, enter, enter. And so I've created a cage for this mug that's similar to the cage that existed for this original sphere. And I can again start doing manipulations on this mug. Maybe I don't like how far this handle is. I can actually push that in a bit, or I can elongate this whole as well. So I can have a nice tall coffee mug now. Or I can do some interesting shape here and push these in. And this is a pretty like fun feature, so if you guys want to just play around with this, I encourage you to, and see what you can make. Cool. I guess this will wrap it up. You know, we're at 8 o'clock, but if you guys want to stick around and keep working, I can still give you some tips, and I'll take any questions that you guys have. So yeah.